I'm Lee McLaughlin, and this is our kitchen. Kathy, my wife, is videoing this, and we're glad you're here to join us today because we're going to be putting together a beef stew that you can cook easily and make quickly for your crock pot. We hope that you'll enjoy doing this and you'll use this recipe many, many times in the future. To kind of set the stage, I thought I'd show you first what we have here. In your package that you received, you should have some items. Those items are going to be a baggie that's got your carrots and a piece of celery in it, and your beef, frozen beef. And it's already been cubed for you. Then you're also going to have a container, and this is a reusable container. However, I wouldn't put it in the dishwasher because it gets too hot in the dishwasher. But it's a good little container for you to put your leftovers in after you're finished with your meal tonight. Inside that container, you're going to find a vegetable peeler, which is a useful tool, and you're going to want to hold on to that, that's for sure. An entire garlic pod, an onion, and some potatoes. The right number of potatoes for preparing this meal. So we're going to be able to get on with this thing real quickly. The last thing you should find is a box of beef broth. And you're going to use that as we go into the final cooking phase of the meal. Let me set these out of the way. And let's move our crock pot over to front and center since we're going to be using it a lot. Now before we begin prepping, we have to do the obvious. We have to wash our hands. So get a little bit of soap. We wash our hands well. We want to make sure we get down between the fingers, we want to get our thumbs, we want to get the backs of our hands. We want to really wash down really well. This is something that obviously we've heard a lot of on television lately, but it is an important thing that we should always be doing as just part of our lifestyle. And it makes it so much healthier for your environment that you're in with your children. So we've washed our hands. I need to dry them. We're ready to get down to the meat of the matter, so to speak. I have here a chuck roast that I've already cut into some cubes and prepared to get us ready to go. I've got some more here that I wanted to just demonstrate with. What we've done is I've taken and cut it, if you notice, into about a 1-inch thick slice across the grain of the beef. This is with the grain of the muscle. You want to be cutting across the grain of the muscle to get the pieces that you need for the beef stew so it'll hold together well. Then we take each piece and we cut it in half. And we cube that down to nice size, about 1-inch square pieces. Doesn't have to be exactly that. See, these are a little bit longer there, but it doesn't make sense to cut them down. And we put them in with our other beef. We have to do that till we have about 1.5 pounds of beef, which you already have in that bag. We've cubed it and measured it into 1.5 pound bags. So you're going to be able to just toss it in. You don't have to worry about it. Easy to work with, fun to do. So here's the last piece that we're going to cube up. And you got to just use your judgment on the sizing. And you just don't want to make them too small, or they just kind of fall apart. And over the time that it takes to cook, if they're in nice sized pieces, it'll hold up well. Last thing we want to do is we want to take what's left of that beef, get ourselves a baggie, stick it in the baggie, seal the baggie, pop it in the freezer for the next time you want to cook a meal. Now you have your second meal ready. Your chuck roast, I use boneless chuck roast because it's a nice piece of meat and it's relatively low cost. You're going to pay somewhere between $3.50 and $5 a pound for it, but it's a good, wholesome piece that doesn't have bones in it, doesn't have a lot of fat in it, it's marbleized well, so it'll prepare well, and it's reusable. I mean, you can use this, you don't have to use all of it at once. Let's set this over in the sink to get it out of the way. I always work on plastic when I'm preparing any kind of a meat, rather than doing it on wood, on a wood cutting board. So if you only have one cutting board, choose to use plastic because it washes off the blood and the oils from the meats won't penetrate the wood. You don't have to worry about cleaning up the wood and changing it out. So we're ready to move on now to, let's put the meat in the crock pot. We want to start getting it ready. So we turn on our crock pot and we put it on high, and we start by putting all the beef in, spreading it around on the bottom of the crock pot as best we can. I'll probably set the time up for about, let's say, I can't see it there. Set it for an hour just to be safe. We're going to be done before that. I'll set this bowl over in the sink. Okay, so now we're ready to get into the vegetables and the other preps. First thing we need to do is we're going to be adding garlic to the beef, and we're going to be adding chopped onion to the beef. So let's prepare those two first. If you see, I've already chopped my garlic. I use more garlic than a lot of people. So the recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic. I think that's a little lean, but you might start there unless you're a true garlic lover. You should have received an entire pod of garlic, and we're going to peel that apart and pop out a couple of cloves. So there's a clove right there. And here's the second clove. Now this is the one that used to always puzzle me when I was prepping or first learning how to cook. And that is, how in the world did I get the peelings off of this garlic? I got a garbage bag here, I'm going to put it in here for usefulness. So here we are, we got the cloves, and if you'll notice, one end has got like a root end, and the other end may actually be even butted out a little bit, but that isn't going to hurt it any. Okay? We take our knife and we hold it flat blade down and just give it a little whack on the end. Now we cut through that root end, and it peels apart very easily. Look at that. Now we get it all a peeled clove very quickly, very easily. Nice to know. Here we are again. Let's do it again. We lay the clove down, the root end, give it a little whack with the blade of our knife, cut it off at the root end, and then peel away that skin that has been broken loose. And there it is. Now we need to mince that garlic to put with the beef. So we just lay it out here, take our knife, and slice it down into thin slices. You notice how I work with my fingers kind of curled back to keep from cutting myself with the knife, which is always a good thing. And then we just have to chop it down some. There's no real uniformity to this, just kind of work your knife up and across your cutting board and across your garlic till you get it to what you consider a sufficient size. Peeling it all off your knife, and we take that and put it in with the remaining garlic that we had. And we add that to our beef. And we kind of stir that around, get it mixed in well with the beef. And we're waiting for that thing to start cooking a little bit. I'll set this over here, and we'll move on to taking care of the onion. Onion is a tearjerker. Everybody complains about it, including Kathy. She's always saying, "Oh, will you cut the onion?" And I end up cutting the onion. But there's a real easy method to preparing onion that's quick and efficient and usually keeps you free of tears. That is, here's the onion itself. This is the root end, and this is the end that comes up out of the ground with the green part. Okay? So you look for that root end on your onion, You lay it down on your board. Here's the root end, and we're going to cut off at the top end enough that we have to work. Okay? Set that aside. Turn it over. Now the root end's up. We cut that down through the middle of the root. We have 2 halves of an onion now. Then we take the outer layer and we just peel it off, the last skin of the onion, and set it aside. We do that on both of these, and we're going to set that aside. That's going in our garbage or composting if you do composting, and then we cut. You see the root end here? We cut down near the root end and come out. And we make it into little slices this way. Then we hold it back here, cut across the stuff. Fairly thin or whatever you want. Come on down to where your root is, and you finally end up at the root piece. There's the root piece. That's garbage. If you take a look at this, look at that. It's all broken, it's all chopped up very nicely. And we can put that in with our beef now. And now we're starting to get some nice smell, great smell of the vegetables and not mixing. I have to chop this up very quickly and move on to the next thing from here. So if you'll bear with me, we'll get this chopped up. And put it in here with it. So now we have everything in the meat that we need except for flour. We need to take a 1/4 cup of flour. That's where your tablespoon comes in handy. If you don't have a 1/4 cup, you can take a tablespoon, and 4 tablespoons equals a 1/4 cup. So you don't need to have a measuring cup. You can just take this and 1, sprinkle it around as best you can. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that set that aside. Set our flour aside. And one last time, I'm kind of tossing it around to make sure all the beef is kind of coated and dredged in the flour. And if you look down in there now, you're going to see that there's a pretty good coating on all of it. And we'll put the lid on our Crock-Pot while we begin some of the other preps. Let me rinse my hands. Okay, now we have to prep our potatoes, and our carrots, our celery, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing the potatoes. We'll start with that first. The way we don't usually do it, which is we fully peel the potatoes. So we take our peeler and we just lay it down against the skin, and we peel that skin off. See how easily it peels with the peeler? It's such an easy job to do, and it's such an effective tool. I love these tools. Yeah. You go on around, keep going until you get all the peeling off. And there we have it. Now we can take this and cut it down to bite-sized pieces. I'll go ahead and toss it in so I don't want to waste it in the water with it. Now here's the way I do it. I've already washed this, by the way, but you want to wash off your potatoes at all times, or any of your vegetables for that matter. Then we cut down the middle of this. We lay it down, cut that in half. There you go. Now we just take these and make it into bite-sized pieces again. There you go, that's 1 potato all done. Now tell me you're going to want to peel potatoes after seeing how easy it is that way. Okay, so there we get our potatoes ready. We'll add those in a few minutes let's push this stuff aside so we have some room to work. Our celery. Celery we'll want to tend to cut off a good bit of the white part at each end. That also gives us nice fresh celery. Cut it down the middle if it's a wide piece of celery. If it's a narrow piece of celery, you don't need to do that. Then cut it into about 1-inch long pieces. And we'll put that in where the carrots are since it'll all go in together anyhow. Okay, and that leaves us with the carrots. Now the carrots are another story. I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of vitamins in the skin of potatoes. That's also in carrots, but it seems to be more uniformly distributed throughout the carrot. So skin becomes kind of a preference. How do you want to have it? Do you want to have it with the skin or without the skin? Like I said before, leaving the skin on is certainly easier. Peeling the skin off will tend to make it a little more tender. Usually the times you want to do that is when you're doing something like steaming your carrots, or something where the carrot itself is going to carry the flavor and carry the texture all by itself. So that's the time you're going to want to peel it. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to go ahead and peel it and show you how we determine the sizing on that and add it into our dish. So you see how easily it peels again with this peeler? I'll tell you, I wish I had invented this. So there we are. We got our carrot all peeled, and we're ready to start cubing it down. Okay, so we want to make it about 1-inch pieces. What we want to end up with is roughly a uniform volume. So as we get thicker, it's going to get a little bit smaller, shorter this way. We get to a really big part of it, we're going to want to cut it down in half like that, and then we're going to want to take those and try again to keep it fairly uniform in thickness. Why do we want to keep it uniform in thickness? We want to do that so they all cook evenly and that everything's ready at the same time. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to add the vegetables into our mixture. Let me grab a spoon to work with here. I want to just kind of give this meat a little bit of a stir. And it's just now really starting to heat up. You could even delay a few minutes if you like, putting in your vegetables to let them get a little more cooked, but we're going to go ahead and put them in. It doesn't matter, it doesn't affect it either way. Okay, so we have, first of all, we have our carrots and our celery. We just dump it into the mix. Next item we want to get to is our potatoes. Pour off the water if you've been soaking it in water. And dump those into the Crock-Pot, preferably not with the bowl. And then we want to take that again and kind of toss them in with the meat, so that we get it kind of mixed pretty well and all ready to go for when we're going to be eating later. So now you see we got a nice, colorful, beautiful mix of vegetables and meat, and it's all in there ready to start cooking. Okay, spices. Spices I've chosen to use, and this is part of the recipe, and also is paprika, but paprika is an option. Some people aren't real big on paprika. It doesn't add a lot of spiciness or anything like that, but it gives it a richness. So I use paprika an awful lot when I cook. But we want to have a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So what do? We grab a teaspoon out of our drawer, and we take our lid off, and we sprinkle about a teaspoon across our dish. Ditto on the paprika. We want to have about a teaspoon of paprika. I'll go over here. This is not super critical path. You happen to have a little more or a little less. It doesn't really affect you. You can actually check it partway through if you want to see if you need to add anything else. And close those up. We want to add a half a teaspoon of black pepper. So we have ground black pepper, and there's about a half a teaspoon. Again, sprinkle it across it. And a half a teaspoon of salt. We use Mediterranean salt. There's various kind of Himalayan salt, Mediterranean salt, all sorts of salts. Some people argue that well, they have different trace minerals in them and they affect your body. One thing we don't want to neglect is the need for trace minerals. We tend to not have foods that are high in that. Certainly the higher the processing, the less likely of carrying those trace minerals into your cooking and then into your body. Okay, so last thing to do is we have to add a cup of broth. Here again, that's kind of a relative measurement, and it isn't, all I gotta do is find our cups. This is actually a coffee mug, is a 12-ounce cup. So 1 cup would be about 2/3 of a coffee mug, because a cup is equal to 8 ounces. So if you have a 12-ounce cup, 12-ounce mug, and you want 1 cup, you use about 2/3 of that mug. Now here, so we open up the broth. Probably should give it a little bit of a shake to make sure everything's all together. Open up that broth and pour into the cup, till it's about 2/3 full. Okay, you can see what we did. Then we sprinkle it over the entire solution. Now what's going to happen is the flour that we add is going to thicken that broth into like a gravy and coat all the meal. Let's give it one last stir around, just so we can get everything coated with the moisture. Put the lid on. Choose our settings. Now if you take a look, we've had it on high, getting the meat a little bit tenderized, but we're going to switch it over to medium or low. Low heat. You see we did that. And we have 43 minutes left on that cook. But we want a total of about, on low, about 10 hours. So we just crank up the time. See, it's now 2 hours and 30, 3 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. There's 10 hours. That's it. 10 hours from now, you can come back, dish up a great meal for your family. We'll take a look at it when it's all done and share with you what the final product looks like. Thanks for joining us. I sure hope that you guys enjoy this meal as much as Kathy and I do. Have a good day. Love you. Okay, we're back. And we're going to take a look at what this meal looks like. I'm hungry. I've been outside messing around for a while. Oh, baby, is that good. What do you see this? Let me get a bowl. You're going to love this. Look at that. Dish it up. See those carrots and those potatoes, and that meat is all cooked down. Look at that. Look at that. It smells wonderful. I got to have a bite of it. Make you all jealous. I'll be anxious to hear from you when we have this all wrapped up. Let me taste. Very nice. Very nice. I guess I would put maybe a little bit more salt in, but that's me. You need to make it with the salt that we said, though. You can always add salt, but you can't take it away. Well, thank you for coming to our kitchen today, and thank you for taking a look at our finished meal, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Good night.